Appreciate all of the Christmas decorations. I know folks come down here, when most of us aren't around, put a lot of time and effort into decorating and keeping our church looking beautiful. I appreciate it a great deal. Seems a little weird to have nativity scene watching me from behind. We are going to be in Hosea chapter 8 this morning. Hosea chapter 8, God has over and over and over again been dealing with them, and if I had to write a heading for this chapter, I would call it Reaping the Whirlwind. We're going to read the first 7 verses and then bow for word prayers, and we're going to turn to another passage to set the tone for what he's going to talk about this morning. So let's read the first 7 verses of Hosea chapter 8. Set the trumpet to thy mouth, he shall come as an eagle against the house of the Lord, because they have transgressed my covenant and trespassed against my law. Israel shall cry unto me, my God, we know thee. Israel hath cast off the thing that is good. The enemy shall pursue him. They have set up kings, but not by me. They have made princes, and I knew it not. Of their silver and their gold have they made them idols, that they may be cut off. Thy calf, O Samaria, hath cast thee off. Mine anger is kindled against them. How long will it be ere they attain to innocency? For from Israel was it also, the workman made it. Therefore it is not God, but the calf of Samaria shall be broken in pieces. For they have sown the wind, and they shall reap the whirlwind. It hath no stalk. The bud shall yield no meal. If so be it yield, the strangers shall swallow it up. It's God for the word of prayer. Father, thank you this morning for the opportunity to look into your word. Thank you that we were able to take some time away from our busy schedules this past week to be appreciative, not only of what you have done for us and how much you've blessed us, but also for who you are. Because what you do stems from who you are. Help us to realize that idolatry is when we take something of lesser value and put it in the only place that you rightfully deserve first place in our hearts and in our lives and in our values and in our thoughts. And I trust that we would be open-hearted this morning to learn a lesson from the nation of Israel, that what we sow, we will eventually reap. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen. Turn with me, if you will, to a familiar verse, I believe, Galatians chapter 6. Galatians chapter 6, verse 7 through 9 is probably the most clearly and greatly stated principle of sowing and the reaping. And in the middle of this, he stops and he says in verse 7, be not deceived, God is not mocked. For whatsoever a man soweth, that shall he also reap. Now, this is a great verse, and I'm going to bite my tongue here and not spend a lot of time. It's hard, but we're going to do it because this is simply an introduction. This opening verse sets the whole tone for the sowing and the reaping principle. And that's really important when we go back to Hosea chapter 8. Okay? He says, you got to realize 2 very important lessons here. You can be deceived, and God is not mocked. And so when we go back to Hosea chapter 8, I want you to keep those 2 thoughts in mind, because the nation of Israel has deceived themselves, and they think they are making a mockery of God. And what he is doing is he is saying, what you have sown, you are about to reap. And please understand that you might be deceived, but that doesn't mean that it changes anything. And you might think that God is going to be mocked, but that doesn't change anything either, because God is not mocked. Okay? What is he not mocked about? For whatsoever a man soweth, that shall he also reap. you are deceiving yourself and you think you can make a mockery of God, that you can do whatever you want to and not reap the consequences for your choices and for your actions. Verse 8, for he that soweth to his flesh shall of the flesh reap corruption, but he that soweth to the Spirit shall of the Spirit reap life everlasting. And let us not be weary in well-doing, for in due season we shall reap if we faint not. Now, before we leave, I just want to leave you this thought in case you're meditating on this afternoon. Almost every time I have heard this passage preached, it's preached from a negative standpoint. You better be careful what you sow because you're going to reap it. But if you read all the way down through verse 9 and you take the whole passage together, God is not approaching this from a negative standpoint. Yes, there's a warning in here. But what he is trying to do, he is trying to encourage the church at Galatia that if they are sowing good things, even though it doesn't seem like there is a harvest, even if it doesn't seem like there's growth, it might not even seem like people are coming to Jesus Christ at the time. Don't be deceived, and God is not mocked. When his word goes forth, it always goes forth with power. That's the principle that you have to understand here. Now, go back to Hosea chapter 8. This is almost a chapter of what could have been. Instead of reaping the blessing from what they should have been sowing, they are fixing to reap the whirlwind. The whole theme of this chapter is found down in verse 14 at the beginning. For Israel hath forgotten his Maker. That's the theme of chapter 8 here. They would not be reaping the whirlwind if they had not forgotten their Maker. Two questions that I want you to think about as we dig into this morning. The first one, how do we misplace God? That's sowing. And the second one, what happens when we misplace God? That's reaping. Because what you're going to see here is the nation of Israel has misplaced God, and there's a lot of stuff that contributes to it. I want to read from commentary by Ogilvy. He comments on a statement that Alan Redpath made. Years ago, Alan Redpath wrote incisively, "Do we understand what it means to forget God? I'm not sure we do. It does not mean that God was put into the realm of oblivion. You cannot forget God like that. Even in denying God, you are remembering him. Intellectually, we do not forget God." The word forget here means Israel hath mislaid his Maker. If you forget something, it is out of your memory altogether. If you mislay something, you are completely aware of its existence, but as far as you're concerned, it is out of use, it is out of circulation. When we shelve, file, or misplace things, they become out of sight and out of mind. Soon we cannot remember where we put them. We know that they still exist, but they have no current importance in our lives. We sometimes do that with God. We file him away and forget where we put him. Finally, we lose any conscious awareness of the presence of God. He did not remove himself from us. Rather, we removed ourselves from him. He has ordained that we should grow in him through knowledge of and obedience to his word. Discerning and doing his will is the secret of a deepening relationship with him. And if we are not doing that, then we are misplacing him. Verses 1 through 3, we are going to see some serious terms here that God uses that lets us know how they misplace God. How do you take something so big and so important and lose it? Well, think about it. Lance was mentioning in Sunday school this morning, you can lose your phone, you can lose your car keys, and then you know they're there somewhere, but you run around the house until you find it because you got to go to work, or you have to come down to church, or you have to go to the store. And all of a sudden it becomes important. But if it's important enough, you would never lose it in the first place. Right? I can't imagine if you're out and about and you're in the busyness of the store and all of a sudden you turn around when your kids are gone. You wouldn't finish shopping and then go look for your child. Right? Say, no way. Why? because it's important enough. If there was even the inkling that you could lose them, you're holding on to them tightly, you're constantly checking on them, or you put them in the cart where they're right in front of you while you're wheeling around in the store. Listen, when we choose to forget God, we do it on purpose. And that's exactly what he's telling the nation of Israel. Starts out here, and he says, set the trumpet to thy mouth. This is the second time Hosea asked that the trumpet be sounded. Now, if you went back to Numbers chapter 10 and read the chapter, you would find out that the nation of Israel was told to make 2 silver trumpets, and they were used for very specific occasions. They were to announce a special occasion. They were to gather the people together because there was some kind of announcement or something important that needed to be dealt with, to sound an alarm or to proclaim war. Those are the things in Numbers chapter 10 that they were told to do with the trumpet. Well, what is Hosea doing here? He is sounding an alarm. Could you imagine if you were walking around Jerusalem and you know, everything's going good, people are buying and selling, and maybe it's Black Friday and you're trying to get the best deal on, you know, whatever's the hottest item in Jerusalem at the time period, and all of a sudden somebody stands up on the wall and blows the trumpet. Your life would drastically change in an instant. They'd be closing the gates. I mean, people would be scattering for weapons. They'd be trying to figure out where the threat is. What's the important deal that's getting ready to happen? That's exactly what Hosea is doing. He is saying, listen, folks, God has been dealing with you for 7 chapters now, and he has been trying to get you to change your mind, and you are stubbornly refusing to do so. Somebody go get the trumpet, and let's get serious about this. He shall come as an eagle against the house of the Lord, because they have transgressed my covenant and trespassed against me. I want to look at the sowing principle first. He uses some strong words here. The first is transgressed. It means to alienate or to alter. It can be used both ways. And I think that's interesting, because if you alienate something, then you have no regard for it. It has no value. You don't appreciate it. You are ignorant of it. The result is that you ignore its authority. Therefore, basically, we're living our life apart from God's Word. Maybe because you don't know it. Maybe because you don't value it. Or we do this. We alter it. And that's what's happening a lot today. It doesn't fit my lifestyle, so I will change it to ease my conscience. We have people who get up and quote God's Word in the use of some of the things that you would absolutely think that they should know better. I'm going to bless this abortion clinic because God's Word says. I believe it's okay to do such and such because God's Word says. I'm going to divorce my wife because God told me. Wait a minute. Hold on just a minute. Did God's Word tell you that? Or is your version of what God said telling you that? We alter and twist it to fit our lifestyle instead of altering our lifestyle to fit God's Word. And the more we do it, the more we misplace it. Because His authority becomes less and less important, and my authority becomes more and more important. Until I become the final authority in my life, and God's Word has absolutely no value. The second word that he uses here, he says, you have transgressed my covenant, and you have trespassed against my law. This word means to rebel, to revolt, to apostatize. I know it. I'm just not going to obey it. It's that stubborn thing that you see in kids. Did I tell you not to do such and such? Yes. Did you understand that you weren't supposed to do such and such? Yes. Why did you do it? I don't know. Yes, you do. You did it because you made a conscious decision that what you wanted was more important than what mommy or daddy said. And we do the exact same thing to God. And every time we do, we misplace Him a little farther because we care less and less for what He has to say. Basically what we're doing is choosing something or someone else as more valuable, more desirable, and more worthwhile than Him, which is the definition of idolatry. In verse 2 he goes on, it says, Israel shall cry unto me, my God, we know thee. You say, well, that sounds good. Listen, this is the definition of hypocrisy. Only in their deepest distress, when nothing else works, do they cry out to God. They are not willing to cry out to Him any other time. They're not willing to worship Him as He asked them to worship Him. All of their worship is based on convenience. I'm going to worship the golden calves at Dan and at Bethel rather than go down to Jerusalem. I'll worship here. I'll worship this. I'll worship anything I want to until the circumstances get bad enough. And then all of a sudden we come to God, and instead of doing the, well, I don't understand why I love in God, man, we throw ourselves at Him like we're long-lost friends. And God's probably sitting there going, now that you're suffering the inevitable consequences of your choices, you're going to come to me and expect me to change them? You've been deceived, but I'm not mocked. Whatever a man sows, that he is going to reap. And as soon as the reaping starts, all of a sudden, we didn't want to change any of the sowing, but we expect God to intervene in some miraculous way and start changing the reaping. Go with me real quickly to Titus chapter 1, verse 16. I want to read one verse. They profess that they know God, but in works they deny Him, being abominable and disobedient unto every good work, reprobate. And that describes the nation of Israel, and I got to tell you, it describes most of the church today. They profess on Sunday to know God. In some places they get all excited and whoop and jump and have some big celebration, and then they go out Monday morning, and there is not the least bit of difference in their life. There isn't a thought of God until it comes back to Sunday morning again. They profess that they know God, but in every activity, in every action, in every thought, in every value of their mind, they deny Him because they are not the least bit obedient to Him. Go to Luke chapter 6, verse 46. Jesus Christ was dealing with this. And what's interesting is the way in which He challenged the people about this very same concept. You have Pharisees and Sadducees who are constantly after Him, and they're questioning Him all the time, and they're doing all these things. And He's been trying to teach him with some parables. In verse 46 it says, why call ye me Lord, Lord, and do not the things which I say? Now, you've got these Pharisees and Sadducees, and you've got these supposedly religious people who are constantly coming up to Him, and they're trying to trip Him up. And one of them walks up to Him and says, Lord, Lord. And Jesus, before He even gets a time to talk, says, hold on just a minute. Why do you call me that? You don't treat me that way. You don't know me in that relationship. So why in front of everybody do you walk up here and say, Lord, Lord, I have a question. I have a very important question for you. And Jesus is going, no, you don't. You don't consider me Lord. It's hypocrisy. It's the same thing as the Pharisee who walks into the temple and he's been foreclosing on widows' houses and he's been abusing the poor and he's been doing all these things for filthy money. And then he walks in there and he sees this little beggar guy walk over to the offering and chuck some money in. And he's standing there going, I'm so glad I'm not like this filthy little sinner. And Jesus is thinking, I wish you were. That man understands humility. That man understands repentance. That man understands forgiveness. But you stand here in your self-righteousness and we have no relationship. That's what he's saying here. We know you. Well, of course, the nation of Israel knows Him. They know Him historically, right? I mean, every time they're asked about God, it's the God of Abraham and the God of Isaac and the God of Jacob. And they even go so far as to tell Jesus Christ, well, Abraham we know, and Isaac we know, and Moses we know, but you're just the son of Mary and Joseph. So I have to ask myself a question. Do I know Jesus Christ historically? Well, when I was a kid in Sunday school, is that all you know about Jesus Christ? Then maybe you set him aside like car keys. You really don't care too much about him until it's time to go to the store, and then you need your car keys. Only maybe the reaping is coming back and the circumstances are starting to pile up, and now all of a sudden we're looking around for our misplaced God because it's time for him to do something on our behalf. Or maybe the last time you saw God was in your last dire emergency. God, you get me through this, I promise I'll never miss a church service. How long does that last? We saw that as a nation in 9/11. And it lasted about 2 weeks until everybody got busy doing all their other stuff, and then they set him on a shelf. And until there's another dire emergency, we really don't need him. 1 Samuel chapter 4, verse 3. I'll read it for you. You can turn there if you want to. When the people were coming to the camp, the elders of Israel said, "Wherefore hath the Lord smitten us today before the Philistines?" Uh-oh, we're reaping. We got a dire emergency. It's time to go find God. So what do? Let us fetch the ark of the covenant of the Lord out of Shiloh unto us, that when it cometh among us, it may save us out of the hand of our enemies. Do you see what's happened here? Time to go get my holy, holy car keys. Since when does the Ark of the Covenant save anyone? They have so far removed themselves from the God of Israel that they don't even recognize him as the authority that works in a dire emergency. Let's not go getting too holy here. We don't actually want to run out and worship God. Let's just bring the Ark of the Covenant in and that'll fix everything. Take the time to read the rest of the chapter this afternoon, you'll see it doesn't get much worse for the nation of Israel. The priest's sons are killed, and a bunch of people are killed, and the ark's taken, and then God has to show up first to the Philistines. Can you believe that? He has to show up to the Philistines and have them send the ark back to Israel before he can get the attention of Israel, because they have misplaced him so far. They've been sowing and sowing and sowing and sowing, and God brings in the Philistines, and as soon as it's time to reap, oh, let's go get the ark, and that'll fix everything. Maybe you're deceived, and maybe you're making a mockery of God. But let's go back to Ephesians chapter 6, because it says, don't be deceived, because God is not mocked. What a mess. Go back to Hosea chapter 8. Uses another word here. Israel have cast off. Means to be forsaken and forgotten. You have a coat on, and it's that time of the year, whether it's the fall or the spring, where sometimes it's nippy and sometimes it's warm, and you walk into the house, or you're in the car and you get too hot and you take the coat off, and later on it gets cold again, and you're running around looking for your coat and you can't remember what you did with it. I know it has to be here somewhere, and you're looking all over the house, and you're looking through closets, and you're looking everywhere. You just cannot find that coat. Finally, you go out there in the car, and lo and behold, it's in the very bag, trampled all over and wrinkled up, and you're like, oh, that's my good coat. Well, it was only your good coat when you needed it to shield you, but it certainly wasn't your good coat when you cast it off. You see exactly what he says here. The nation of Israel has so little regard for God that just like like a coat that they don't need at the time, and that they laid God aside. And what's interesting, in the middle of this verse, it says, Israel hath cast off the thing that is good. We've looked at this word before. It's tall. As a noun, it means a good thing, a good man, or a good woman. As an adverb, it means something beautiful, something better, something best, something bountiful. And in combination, it means something pleasant, pleasing, precious, sweet, and well-favored. And do you understand what God's saying here? He's saying, you have cast aside a good thing, a desirable thing, something beautiful, something better, something best, something pleasant, something pleasing, something precious, something well-favored. And what are you putting in its place? How many of you, if anybody went shopping on Black Friday, you run through the store and you're fighting the crowd, and you're looking for something, and you find this really awesome gift. And then a little while later, you look at something and you say, well, here's some cheap imitation of it. Why would I pay for this good thing when I can just have a cheap imitation? This thing don't have made in China stamped on the bottom. Who buys something that doesn't have made in China stamped on it? So you buy the little $3 gift. The laptop you bought for the grandkids. And you expect it to work how well and how long? No, see, when we go shopping for something, we want to do our research. We want to find out what's the best. What has the history of lasting the longest? I want the most bang for my money. And what God says here is, you've cast me off like a coat you don't even need, and you've replaced it with made in China. Or maybe we ought to say made by Baal, or Ashtaroth, or a golden calf. You've left something that was wonderful and desirable and beautiful, and you cast it off for something that's worthless. And you're getting ready to reap. Go back to verse 1. Set the trumpet to thy mouth, he shall come as an eagle against the house of the Lord. Why an eagle? This is a dire warning. We don't have the time to turn there, but in Deuteronomy 28:49, Jeremiah 4:13, both of them are interesting passages. God says the same thing. I shall come against you as an eagle that teareth the flesh. It's a symbol. In Habakkuk 1:8, it's used to describe something that comes in with great speed and strength. Have you ever seen an eagle pluck a fish right out of the water? That's a pretty incredible sight. I've been blessed to see it a couple of times. I mean, here they come. They strike so fast. How in the world they stay out of the water is almost a mystery to me. You talk about good air brakes. They are flying down, and it's like all of a sudden, bam, grab that fish, and off they go. With a couple big swings, and they're gone. God says, do you realize that I am coming against the house of Israel like an eagle? Before you even realize, now if the fish saw the eagle, do you think it would stay there? No. And that's the picture here. Out of time, you have ignored the warnings, and I am about to strike. That's what he's telling them as he opens this chapter. Why? Because you have forsaken me. And in verse 3, Israel has cast off the thing that is good, and the enemy shall pursue him. We've looked at this word. Right? Let's go back to chapter 2, verse 7. Because this is the exact same word in Hosea chapter 2, verse 7. And she shall follow after, same word, her lovers, but she shall not overtake them. And she shall seek them, but shall not find them. Remember the passion that was involved as the nation of Israel is going astray? And God's doing everything that he can to intervene and keep them out of trouble. That's what you see here in Hosea chapter 2, verse 7. Now, go to chapter 6, verse 3. is used in a different way. First of all, it was pursuing their lovers. Now we see, then shall we know if we, here's the word, follow on to know the Lord. His going forth is prepared as the morning, and he shall come unto us as the rain. You remember what I told you about that term? It means to hunt. To hunt. Do you hunt the Lord? Do you study him, what he likes and what he doesn't like? Do you passionately pursue him? And go back, if you will, to chapter 8, verse 3. The enemy shall hunt you. Do you see what he says here? The enemy will hunt you with the same passion you hunted idolatry and adultery. And with the same passion that you should have hunted God. Interesting, isn't it? Be not deceived. God is not mocked. Whatsoever a man soweth, that shall he also reap. If you had been sowing with that same passion, you would have been reaping a wonderful relationship with God. But because you have been sowing after adultery and idolatry, your enemy is going to hunt you passionately. As passionately as you hunted your sin, your consequences will run you down and eat you up. That's what he says. Look at verse 4. They have set up kings, but not by me. They have made princes, and I knew it not. Of their silver and gold have they made them idols, that they may be cut off. Choosing leadership apart from God. The sowing? From Samuel's time, Israel is a theocratic monarchy. You remember? They see all the kings that are around them, and so they come to Samuel and they say, make us a king. And Samuel's aggravated about it. The problem is, Samuel's sons have been perverting worship, and so they no longer want this because worship isn't working like it's supposed to, so we want what everybody else wants. And God says, listen, don't you be mad at them. They haven't rejected you, Samuel. Who have they rejected? They rejected the Lord. That's what he tells them. So God chooses the king. Right? God chose Saul. And then Saul was responsible to God. And so when he violates his covenant and he gets ready to make the sacrifice before they go to war, God rejects Saul and chooses David. And in David's time, you have people who are trying to put another king on the throne, but God said Solomon is going to take over. And so you have this fight for power at the end of David's life, and all of it comes to nothing until Solomon is anointed as king. Do you remember last week when we were talking about those 5 kings and how bloody they are and going in and assassinating a bunch of folks? We've looked at it a couple of times in the history of the nation of Israel. Do you see what God's saying? He says, what happened to the time when I chose the king and the king was responsible to me? What happened to the time where my prophet went out and anointed somebody? And now you've taken everything into your own hand and you're killing each other off and you're usurping the authority, but no one is chosen by me and everybody's acting in authority without me. And you're getting ready to reap the consequences because you've gone from a theocratic monarchy where God picks the king to an autonomy which is self-governing rule apart from God. We just slid him over and set him on. So. And everything seems to go well for a little while because we're not accountable to him, so our conscience feels better. And then all of a sudden, the reaping sets in. And what happens here is you follow the wisdom of the choice of your leadership, and then we get what we deserve. We've seen that in our country. have set up kings, but not by me. They have made princes, those are the folks in the court, and I knew it not. And so you have the government and you have the court system being controlled by man's wisdom instead of God's wisdom. And when that happens, look at the second half of the verse. Of their silver and their gold have they made them idols, that they may be cut off. The principle here is bad leaders leads to bad religion. 1 Kings chapter 12, Jeroboam is told by God he is going to be given the 10 kings of the north. And so when it actually comes true and he is given the 10 kings, he kind of looks down there at the southern kingdom, just 2 tribes around Jerusalem. He says, well, wait a minute. If everybody goes back down to Jerusalem, then maybe they're going to buddy up. And I'm going to lose my kingdom. And we cannot have that happen. So what he does is he makes 2 golden calves, and he makes them, pay attention, for political reasons. It has absolutely nothing to do with worship. And if you think leadership in Washington today has anything else but political reasons in mind, you might as well go stick your head in the sand. Their worship, 99% of the time, the things that they say are important, the things that they promote, are for political reasons. I need to keep my job. I need to promote such and such an agenda. And man's wisdom leads to man's worship. Who gave those 10 tribes to Jeroboam? God did. And then you're going to turn around and ignore him, set him on the shelf, and start worshiping golden calves. Listen, if you can worship golden calves and not God, you can worship anything else. And it does not take long at all before Baal and Ashtaroth and all kinds of gods are being worshipped in the nation of Israel and causing all kinds of problems. To the point where you used to, on the 8th day, go and offer a sacrifice in Jerusalem for your newborn child. And it gets so bad in their history that they are taking newborn children and they are offering them to an idol. That's the deterioration of society, folks, because bad leadership leads to bad worship, and bad worship leads to a bad society. And then we start reaping the consequences, and all of a sudden it's panic time. Oh, we know God. Let's have a national day of prayer. Really? Who are you praying to? How long ago have you set him on the shelf? How long has it been since you prayed the last time? Oh, that big, huge emergency when you were getting ready for surgery. You didn't know if you were going to live through it or not. Or that time where you thought you were going to lose the house, or because you thought, or because be not deceived. God is not mocked. Whatsoever a man soweth, that shall he also reap. Have we misplaced God in our own heart? Let's bow for a little prayer. Father, when we take the time to look into your holy word and see you as you ought to be seen, and know you as you ought to be known, you are so grand and glorious and high and lifted up. There's no way anything could ever take your place, because it's simply just cheap imitation. But we get so busy in our lives, and we get so distracted, and other things start to become, at first, as important, and then later, more important, until you're just until we start reaping. And then all of a sudden we hit the God panic button and expect you to pop up and make everything right. But so many times what we fail to understand is reaping the consequences of our actions is a necessary punishment to restore a proper relationship with you. I don't know what all these folks are dealing with. I certainly don't know what's in their heart. But I trust that you would be preeminent. And if there is someone here that has never known the saving peace of having their sin forgiven by the shed blood of your Son, Jesus Christ, on the cross of Calvary, then today will be the day of salvation. Father, you desire